Okay, so thank you for inviting me to give this talk. I want to talk about joint work with people who are mentioned here: Mathieu Astorg, Romain Dujardin, Anne Peters, and Jasmine Ressier. And I would like to thank also Michal Lubitsch, because most of the ideas in this talk come from discussion between Anne Peters and Michal Lubitsch. So I will just start. I think I can do it quickly, but if there are some people here who are not accustomed to holomorphic dynamics, then I will recall what is the Fatou set. So I want to work with a compact manifold, and I will mention the place where compactness is a difficult thing to preserve. So a compact complex manifold, a holomorphic map, because we are considering holomorphic dynamics, and we look at sequences defined by induction, and we want to understand the long-term behavior of sequences. And because our manifold is compact, we can look at all the set of possible limit values. In the case the manifold is not compact, this set can be empty. But here, if the manifold is compact, then automatically we have limit values, and automatically the set we obtain, the omega limit set, is compact and invariant, and we can try to understand how it depends on the initial point. So we have a set, an omega limit set, which depends on the starting point, initial point x naught, and we can try to understand its behavior. For example, a naive question is, does it depend continuously on the initial point? And the answer is that in general, no. So generally, for example, you can take the Riemann sphere, which is compact. You can look at the map x goes to x squared, which people tend to call z goes to z squared, because it's a complex variable. But since I will go to several complex variables, so it's x. And no, it will be z and w in the talk in any case. Anyway, so now if x is less than 1, then the orbits converge to 0, and the only accumulation point is 0. If x is larger than 1, then the only accumulation point is infinity. And so on the unit circle, you have an instability phenomenon. The omega limit set changes from being 0 to infinity. And this set where there is a discontinuity is called the Julia set, and the complement is called the Fatou set. And the Fatou set is just the largest open set on which the family of iterates is normal. Essentially, it's the largest open set on which this map is continuous. Okay, so one point I would like to emphasize is that when we go to several complex variables, if the manifold is not compact, defining the Fatou set by having a normal family does not give you the same definition depending on the compactification you choose, because by choosing your compactification you can change the set of limit values. If you enlarge your compactification, then you can have more discontinuity. So I will try to be always in a compact case where the Fatou set is well defined. And I really think of it by looking at the possible limits of limit behavior of the sequences. Okay, so in dimension 1, essentially you have two cases where you have holomorphic maps from one dimensional compact surface to itself. It's when the compact surface is P1, or when the compact surface is a complex torus. When it's a complex torus, it's just multiplication. The endomorphisms are just multiplication on the complex torus. And in that case, the Julia set is all torus. So usually we skip to rational maps on P1, and we have the beautiful pictures of Julia sets. And in that case, there is a classification which is due to Fatou and to Sullivan. So Sullivan, much later than Fatou, asserts that so it's not difficult to see that Fatou components, connected components of the Fatou sets, are maps to Fatou components. So there is dynamics on Fatou components. And every Fatou component, so this is the theorem of Sullivan in 1985, every Fatou component is eventually periodic. You have no wandering Fatou component. You cannot have, so if you consider a Fatou component, it's mapped to another Fatou component, maps to another Fatou component, and eventually it ends in a cycle of Fatou components which are permuted, exchanged. And there was a classification at the beginning of the 20th century by Fatou, which says that if you have a periodic Fatou component, you can pass to an iterate and consider a fixed Fatou component for the rational maps. And if you have a fixed Fatou component, then the possible limit values, either you converge to an attracting fixed point within the Fatou component, and you say that you have an attracting basin, or super attracting if the multiplier at the fixed point is 0. Or the limit values in the component, it's a fixed point in the boundary of the Fatou component with multiplier 1. And you say that you have a parabolic basin. Or there was a possibility which was proved to exist later by Siegel in 1942, that the dynamics in the Fatou component can be conjugate to an irrational rotation where orbits accumulate on analytic invariant circles, and you say that you have a Siegel disk. So the dynamics in the Fatou component is just conjugate to an irrational rotation, and this can occur when the Fatou component is simply connected and you have a Siegel disk, or the Fatou component might be an annulus, and you say that you have a Hermann ring. And this is the list of possible cases, and so you have a classification of possible omega limit sets. Either the map x goes to omega limit set of x is constant, equal to an attracting fixed point or a parabolic point, or it's not constant, it's continuous, and you obtain the fixed point, the periodic point at the center, or a periodic cycle of invariant of analytic circles. Okay, so in some sense, there is a classification in dimension 1 which is complete. And the question becomes, what happens if you go to higher dimension? So I have a picture here, so which illustrates for a cubic polynomial, where you have in red, you start in the red region, you converge to an attracting point, or in the black region, you accumulate non-invariant circles, which are indicated in green. Okay, so before going to higher dimension, I said that I would mention something about non-compactness. So if you forget about the compactness condition, and for example, you still work in dimension 1, but from the complex plane to itself, you can consider entire mappings instead of just considering polynomials. And in the case of entire mappings, there is a result due to Baker that shows that there are entire maps with a wandering domain. And this was completed later by, well, first there were other examples which are algebraically easier. And so I can show you a picture on the next slide. Using just sign maps or exponential maps, those two examples, the map z goes to exponential z minus exponential z plus 2 pi I, or z goes to z plus 2 pi minus sine z. Those have wandering domains. And you can start concocting lots of examples having pathological behaviors. And there is an article by Eremenko and Lyubich presenting lots of pathologies that you can obtain, plus recent work of Bishop trying to improve the pathology. Essentially, the pathology you are trying to work against are the ones which are written at the last line. You would like somehow to say that even if you are in the non-compact case, you would like to produce an invariant domain, a wandering domain, which has a bounded orbit. To say that it's not the algebra of polynomials that you work in a finite dimensional space, moduli space of polynomials. Having entire mappings, you have an essential singularity at infinity. It gives you more maps, And one would be very happy to produce an example where the behavior of the wandering domain just takes place in a bounded region, that it does not come close to the essential singularity. But all the examples which have been produced up to now are examples where the omega limit set either is empty because the sequence diverges to infinity, or is unbounded and accumulates the essential singularity. And well, I guess some people think that it's always the case that you cannot restrict to a bounded region. That I don't know exactly. Okay, so if you go to several dimensions, from the examples of Eremenko-Lyubich, you can easily produce maps in two variables with wandering domains. And there is a work of Forness and Sibony which shows that not only you have examples in two variables, but you can construct an example which is a biholomorphism of C2. The map is, and its inverse are defined holomorphic maps of C2. And again, the wandering domain has an unbounded orbit. So when the space, the manifold, is non-compact, then you can do something to build wandering domains. And the question was, can you still do something when the manifold is compact? And up to recently, there were no example of such behavior. So this is the picture for a wandering domain for the map, this map Z plus 2 pi minus sine Z. And the orbit is essentially that if you do not add the 2 pi, and if you just look at Z minus sine Z, there is at 0 an attracting fixed point, even a super attracting fixed point, which is somewhere with its basin of attraction. And if you add the 2 pi, instead of being fixed, the basin of attraction, it's mapped to its translates by 2 pi. So if you start at a point, the orbit just translates essentially by 2 pi each time, and you get your wandering domain. Interesting. Maybe I will compile again and we'll see. There is an error in the theorem, so the computer detects it and is telling me to stop here and not go further. So does there exist an endomorphism of pk with a wandering domain? And good. So I will see what I can do. Maybe I will first. This works. Next, what should I do? It's here. Maybe I will close this one and open it again. Okay, so trying to understand the behavior, the possible omega limit sets you can get when you have a fixed Fatou components in two variables. You have here the classification is not complete. When you have a fixed Fatou component in two variables, you can ask what are the possible limit values. And in one variable, I said you have a constant attracting fixed point, or in the boundary, if you converge to the boundary, it's also a fixed point. And if you go to several complex variables, then it's more delicate because your limit values can be maps from the open Fatou component into a one-dimensional set in the boundary, which can be a disk, a punctured disk, or there's still the possibility that you would have several disks in the boundary which are permuted. And Misha and Ann Peters were trying to prove whether you could find such an example, and they realized that they had an example of such thing, and eventually it does not produce an example of a fixed Fatou component with several limit values in the boundary which are exchanged, but instead it produces an example of wandering domains. And the only thing we had to do was to put the details in order to prove it. So the idea is to work with what is called a fiber product. And a fiber product is a map we'll see afterwards. It's the map from C2 into C2. So I will always say map from C2. At the beginning, I told you that the difficulty was to produce something on a compact surface. So in my mind, what I have is P2 of C. Of course, within this P2 of C, you have a C2. What? Well, I will stop writing then. So you have C2 within P2. So now my hands are more visible. You have C2 within P2. And I will take a polynomial map from C2 into C2. And in order for it to extend to an endomorphism of P2, it's enough that the degrees of the two polynomial components are the same. So I will always say polynomial map of C2, but in fact it produces an example of endomorphism of P2. The next thing is, so if you don't have the light, we'll see whether, so how do, I will write very large, and it should be maybe better. You have two variables, and goes to a first coordinate which only depends on W, and the second coordinate is a map which depends on both W and Z, and I think of it as taking a fiber W is constant, a line W is constant, and maps it via a map FW, which depends on W, to a new line, which maps it to a new line, and so on. And in this example, the line above 0 is fixed. So 0 is a fixed point of G, and everything that we'll consider will be attracted by this fixed line, and the orbit of the wandering domain will accumulate on this line, and within this line we have the dynamics of some polynomial, the polynomial f naught. Okay? So working with the fiber product simplifies the analysis. It gives you less maps to play with, but somehow it's more simple to understand what is going on. So our main result is the following. So this is an example of maps having a wandering domain, and this example is almost explicit in the sense that if I were to put A is 0.95 here, I would have an explicit example. The only thing we can prove at the moment is if A is sufficiently close to 1, then this endomorphism has a wandering domain. And experimentally, A is 0.95 works. So now I have to tell you more about this wandering domain. What is very particular about this wandering domain, this endomorphism? The first thing is for the fiber, the dynamics in the fiber, as I said, 0 is a fixed point. 0 is mapped to itself. And the derivative at 0 is 1. So it's a parabolic fixed point, meaning that if you look at the dynamics in the fiber, W goes to G of W. What you have is that 0 is a fixed point, and if you take some set on the right of 0, then the orbit converges towards 0 under iteration. It's a fixed point, it's not an attracting fixed point, and this will be important. It converges to 0, but not too fast. And if you take a point W naught, the nth iterate Wn is of order, it converges to 0, and now I'm in the bad shape, like 1 over n, is that correct? It's approximately converges to 0, not too fast, meaning at speed, at rate, 1 over n. Okay, so this is something important. And now the next thing I want to look at is what happens in the, so 0 is a fixed fiber. So what happens in the fiber over this fixed fiber over 0? So if you do W is equal to 0, this term disappears. And what you have is Z plus Z squared plus AZ cubed. So again, for this map, 0 is a fixed point with multiplier 1. So we are in the same situation as in the base of our fiber product. We have a fixed point at the origin where the derivative is in fact has only one eigenvalue, which is 1. And in fact, if you look at the term with W, the matrix is not diagonal. And there is an extra term here. And I will say more maybe at the end of the talk about this extra factor, pi squared over 4. It's not something chosen at random. And it has to be, if we want our strategy to work, it has to be pi squared over an even integer. I'm not sure I will have to time to tell you why pi squared over an even integer, but I have a last slide which tries to explain this choice of constant. And this is one of the contributions that we had to make to transform the idea of Michal Lubitsch and Ann Peters into something, an example was to adjust the correct constant. One constant we had to adjust is this pi squared over 4. And the other one was to prove that it will work if we choose A close to 1, sufficiently close to 1, slightly less than 1.
The A belongs to some small interval, but
yes.
in an interval, the pi square
it's pi squared over 4. And it's not, what is important is the ratio of this pi squared over 4, this coefficient, with the coefficient you will put in front of W squared. So here, if we choose -1 so that the orbit converges like 1 over n, you have to choose pi squared over an even integer, and not something close to it. Which means that if you look in the space of all maps of a given degree, we are starting to say that our example will live in some codimension dimension, and you have to count the dimension. We fix the derivative. We fix some ratio of coefficients, so it's at least codimension 3. It's not a large set of examples, but it's not so small. It has some finite, well, codimension 3 or 4, I don't remember. But so there are conditions which have to be imposed for our proof to work.
Why do you need the W to the third power?
So as I said, if I want this to be an endomorphism of P2, then you want the behavior at the near infinity to be well behaved. So if you don't put the W cubed, it works. But then when you extend to P2, it's not holomorphic on the line at infinity. There are points of indeterminacy. It's not a big deal because the orbit to my point of view, because the orbit of the wandering domain remains bounded anyway. It does not come close to infinity. But if you want to say that you have an endomorphism of P2, then you add just the plus W cubed, and this becomes an endomorphism of P2. Okay, so let me tell you something about the omega limit set within this this wandering domain. What is, because I started my talk by telling you what is important about this fat2 set is the behavior of the omega limit set as you vary x. So in that case, the omega limit set is contained, as I said, in the fixed fiber, in the fixed line above W is equal to 0. And it consists exactly of one by infinite orbit, which is marked in red here. It's some point which is called Z0, plus its forward orbit, Z0 maps to Z1, maps to Z2. Remember that this is a fixed fiber. So within this fixed fiber, we have the map Z plus Z squared plus AZ cubed. And for this map Z plus Z squared plus AZ cubed, this red point maps to this one, which maps to this one, which converges to the fixed point at 0. And there is also a backward orbit, Z minus 1, which maps to Z0, Z minus 2, which maps to Z minus 1. And also this backward orbit converges to 0. backward time. And what you have, if you look the outer boundary here, it bounds a simply connected set, which is the basin of attraction of 0 for this polynomial map z plus z squared plus az cubed. And I won't say too much at the moment about the coloring within the attracting basin, but for those who know, it's an enriched Julia set, Julia-Lavors set. Okay, so the omega limit set is just, you should keep in mind, the omega limit set will be an infinite set. The fact that the omega limit set does not consist of a single finite cycle is what will be used later to say that the domain, the Fatou component we obtain is not eventually periodic. To prove that we'll build an open set, we'll say, look, this open set, when we iterate on this open set, the family of iterates remains bounded. Therefore, it's contained in the Fatou set. To prove that the Fatou component containing our open set is not eventually periodic, we'll just say it's not eventually periodic because the omega limit set is not eventually periodic. It's not just a point and having a finite orbit. So the black in this picture is a set of points whose orbits remain bounded when you iterate the polynomial or composition with what is called a Lavors map, which will come later in the talk. Not far from now, probably here. Okay. So now, before going into the proof, so we start having an explicit example, almost explicit example. Before going into more in the proof, I will state a key proposition in the proof, and I try to keep it quite general. So we have the base. So it's all about fiber products again. So we have the base map W minus W squared plus another term. We have the fiber. So the dynamics in the fixed fiber is z plus z squared plus higher order terms. And here the derivative at the origin is 1. So there are parabolic basins, the set of points which are attracted by 0 under iteration for each map. And we form this fiber product, the base map G, and the dynamics of the fiber product is just f of z plus pi squared over 4w. And now what the key proposition says, what happens if you start at a point within the product of basins of the two maps, and you iterate a certain number of time. So maybe I will need to, if I can have some light and some space on the right board, so I can keep that. So I will try to, so this is supposed to be one component C for the W plane. This is to be a copy of C in the Z direction. As I said, the origin is fixed for our map. And the way things have been chosen is that if I start at on the horizontal line here does not mean anything, in fact. It's not fixed, it's not preserved. Dynamically, it has no relevance. The only dynamical relevance is that this is a fixed point. Now, if you start somewhere on the right, what happens is that you are mapped closer to the fiber, and everything converges to the fixed line if you start on the right. On the left, things go away. This is because the term for W is W minus W squared. Now, if you look the dynamics on the right, what happens is that essentially when W is small, if you look in the fiber here, what happens is that a small interval here maps to an interval there, which maps to an interval closer to 0, and it accumulates on 0. On the other side, a small interval here maps to a next interval. Do I have colors? I'm not sure. I have some color here. So a tiny interval close to 0 maps to an interval a little further from 0, maps to an interval a little further within the fixed fiber, and something here maps to something closer to 0. So if you go to the right, when you add this plus pi squared over 4w, what happens is that a disk maps to some disk here, maps to some disk. So it somehow wants to go to 0, but because you have the pi squared over w over 4w, which is positive, you will be eventually able to go through and to pass through it. And when you are far, something may happen. For example, you may be mapped back somewhere down, and then go again. Something like this takes time, and maps back down, and so on. So essentially, the key proposition tells you that if you start within the product of attracting basin at a point ZW, and you start, so we won't start exactly at DW, we'll start at Z Gn squared of W.
WZ or something?
Gn squared of WZ. We start at this point, which means that this is the size of this quantity is essentially 1 over n squared. So we start very close to the fiber. W, this quantity here, is already very small. It's of order 1 over n squared. And then you start iterating, and you won't iterate a random number of steps. You will iterate exactly 2n plus 1 steps, which means that in terms of W, the W coordinate, it starts at Gn squared of W, Gn squared plus 1, Gn squared plus 2, up to Gn squared plus 2n plus 1, which you may recognize as Gn plus 1 squared of W. So you will here be at a point Gn plus 1 squared of W. And then the question is, what can you say about the Z coordinate? And the claim is that the Z coordinate is essentially some given map which depends on f, L sub f of Z. So this notation is because it's some Lavors map, and we'll say more later if we have time. So the whole thing is that we have choosing exactly those iterates, n squared, and we iterate 2n plus 1 squared. We come back with a control behavior. We have a map L close, it's approximately L sub f of Z. So we could start with a larger, when we'll do that again, starting at Gn plus 1 squared of W, this map of Z, and we do it again, we'll essentially be at Gn plus 2 squared of Z, L sub f iterated twice, and then L sub f iterated 3 times and 4 times and so on. And well, maybe you can see the picture that comes to appear, that if the interval in the Z direction get contracted by L sub f, if L sub f has an attracting fixed point, then you will be able to control that next time it comes to a smaller interval and so on, and it will converge to the attracting fixed point of L sub f. So I think this is so this is a picture to illustrate the key proposition. We start at the point Z naught, and starting at this point Z naught, we'll iterate. So the notation here, Gn of W is denoted W sub n. Okay? So we'll start to look at the proposition for n is equal to 5, which means that we have to start at W25. Is it? Yes. So we start at the node and we look at F W25, W26, W27 up to, so when you look 2n plus 1 steps, it means that you have to do 25 up to 2n, you have to go from F sub W35, so I will have to think to see why this is not 2n and this is 2n plus 1. Yes, so between 25 and 35 you have probably 11 if you include the 25. So you have 11 steps, which is twice 5 plus 1. And you go up to this point, which is marked Z sub 11 somewhere. Now you will try to do it with n is equal to 10. And so you start 100, 101 up to, and you iterate 21 times. And you go to Z21. And you get a sequence, so you have a point Z11, a point Z21. So you could do it with, instead of starting with n is equal to 10, n is equal to 100, and so on. And you will see that the sequence of points you obtain converge to some limit point, which is the image of the node by this map, which I have not defined yet, L sub f. But the first point is that there exists a limit behavior. Okay, so what is marked in gray is the basin of F naught, which has a fixed point here. And when you look at FW, I should do this classical drawing just for you to understand how that W is no longer a fixed point. So if you look at F naught, the picture is the following. That if you start at some point, you will converge under iteration to 0. And if you look at FW with W positive, and you start at the same point, then you will come close to 0, and then you will pass further than 0. And this is why here the orbit you obtain, it comes close to 0, and it can go out of the basin of attraction because the basin of attraction is not fixed by FW. It's fixed by F naught. So whenever you start with a gray point and you take Wn large enough, you will obtain this behavior. It comes close to 0, spend some time close to 0, and then it can go out of the basin of 0 because you added a small W positive. Okay, so this was just an illustration of the key proposition that if you take those precise number of iterates, then after 2n plus 1 steps, you come back here. Okay. So now the strategy of the proof is you choose your maps as previously. And so I think I said this. If the map L sub f has an attracting fixed point, then the skew product will automatically have a wandering domain. And the next step is to prove that you can choose the map F so that the Lavors map has an attracting fixed point. Okay, but the
same map you're going to.
Just same map, little f here?
But you have not yet defined the Lavors map.
Yes, I have not defined. So you could choose as definition, the Lavors map is defined, once you prove the existence of a limit, you can choose as definition this limit. But this does not help you working with it. So we'll see another definition which was already in the literature before that we can play with to prove that there is an attracting fixed point. No, I have not defined yet the Lavors map. But it is this limit. You have a limit behavior, and for this limit, if you can prove that this limit has an attracting fixed point, then the proof is completed. So the limit, again, depends on f. So you have to choose f appropriately. This is where we choose the coefficient a, and we say when a is smaller than 1, sufficiently close to 1, then the Lavorce map has an attracting fixed point. This is the picture I drew on the board. It's not, it's exactly the same one, which I stole from a talk of Mathieu Astorg yesterday evening. So, okay, so those iterates is f iterated n square time, f iterated n plus 1 square time, f iterated n plus 2 square time, and so on. And we converge. So this psi is the attracting fixed point of the Lavorce map, and things in the yellow region will converge to this attracting fixed point. And because I don't know, yes. Because psi is not itself periodic, this is what will allow us to say that the Fatu component, so first the yellow square polydisk here will automatically be contained in the Fatu set because the sequence of iterates on this open set is bounded. So it will automatically, by Montel's theorem, give you something where the family of iterates is normal. So it's in the Fatu set. So, yes?
I will be of cauliflower. If you go back to the
so if I come here, in fact, this red point is the one I have in mind as the attracting fixed point. But because the Lavorce map automatically commutes with f because it's a limit of something, all the red points are themselves attracting fixed points of the Lavorce maps.
this one here.
Here I have not drawn the picture for the Lavorce map. So here it's the same basin of attraction. My attracting fixed point is somewhere here. So there I chose a point Z0. As you see, the Lavorce map sends it outside. So on this picture, if I come back to here, it's something in the blue region. So if I take Z0 in the blue region, iterating the Lavorce map, I come outside the blue, and the process stops. Then I escape under iteration of f. So it's important if you want to find the wandering domain to start in the black set. So if I start instead close to this point, the image by the Lavorce map will come back close to the red point. So I can do an experiment. I could almost do it live, but I prepared just when I arrived. I wrote the command just when I arrived here to make sure it would work. So I set W, instead of iterating 100 squared times an initial point, I directly assume that it's 1 over 100 squared. So set W to 1 over 100 squared. And then I will iterate z plus z squared plus 0.95 z cubed plus pi squared over w. W goes to w minus w squared plus w cubed until z escapes. So I could start with maybe 10. Why not? 10, I get this picture. I want to erase this. Okay, for 10, so here is a slide. In the fiber product, I am slicing. I am taking a slide. W is 1 over 10 squared. W is something. I'm looking at the set of points for which, when I iterate, which escape to infinity or have a bounded orbit. Because I already know that in the fiber direction, it converges to 0. So I slice the Fatu set vertically with the vertical fibers. So this is the fiber for 1 over 10 squared. If I choose the fiber for 1 over 100 squared, this is the picture I get. This is obtained for iterating 10,000 times. and asking when you iterate 10,000 times, do you escape to infinity or do you remain have a bounded orbit? And the theorem says that if you start at some point, after 201 steps, 2n plus 1, because I started at 1 over 100 squared, so twice 100 plus 1, 201 steps, my orbit will shadow the orbit of the Lavorce map. So now I can draw the orbit for the first 201 iterates, and as you see, when I'm in this black region, I make a whole turn and I come back. If I start in the blue, I go here and I escape. So depending if I start in this black, I make a whole turn and I come back not too far. Now, if you want to do it twice, to go twice through what is called the Egg-Beater, if you follow the discussion, let's see if you are good students. So the first time I took 201 steps. What is the number of steps I have to choose next time? Because I am at gn plus 1 squared, I have to take twice n plus 1, so 203. So if I'm a bad student, I will say I take 201 again, so I do 402. And what happens is that, I don't know whether you see it, you see that when you come back the second time, you are a little late. Because in fact, what you have to do is 201 and next time 203. And if you do 201 and next time 203, I'm a bad teacher too, which makes 404. You come back. First time you came back here, second time you come back here. And if I do the same thing, so next time it's 309. Next time, the first, the second, the third, next time it's here. And you see that indeed, the theorem seems to work, that if the first time you take 201, 203, 205, 207, and so on, it seems that indeed you come back closer and closer to some limit point. Okay? So where is my slide? Okay, so I don't know whether you, well, I don't have much time left. So the sketch of the proof, I have explained the sketch of the proof and the picture. If you prefer, I can explain the sketch of the proof with no quantifiers. Or you let Xi be the attracting fixed point of the Lavorce map. You choose a vertical disk which is mapped into itself by the Lavorce map. Because the map has an attracting fixed point, you can choose a vertical disk which is mapped into itself by the Lavorce map. Then you choose an horizontal disk which is in the basin of attraction of 0 for the base map. And you look at the polydisk, which is the product of the two. The theorem says that if you iterate the fiber product 2n plus 1 times starting at gn squared of wv, then you will end up contained in gn plus 1 squared of wv. So if you iterate now f2n plus 3 starting within this, it's contained in gn plus 2 squared of w cross v. And so this gives you a set which is invariant under iteration, successive iteration by 2n plus 1, 2n plus 3, 2n plus 5 steps. Therefore, U is in the Fatou set because the sequence of iterates is bounded on U. So you on the polydisk V gn squared wv is contained in the Fatou set. So you let U be a component of F. I think there is an n0 squared missing here. F minus, so the preimage, what will eventually be mapped into this. So you take a component of F minus n0 squared of gn0 squared wv. And the claim is that the sequence F of iterate f, the subsequence f iterated n squared, converges to 0 psi on this component u. So it converges to 0 psi on the Fatu component, because on the Fatu component it's normal. If it converges on this polydisk, it converges on the whole Fatu component to 0 psi. And now we have to prove that the Fatu component is not eventually periodic, that it's a wandering Fatu component. And we observe that if we start fj of 0, so we observe that fj of 0 psi is more or less by definition 0 fj of psi. This is just because the fiber 0 is fixed. And so I have to explain this. So because psi is not eventually periodic for f, omega is not eventually periodic. The Fatu component is not eventually periodic for capital F. So if I have some light, maybe I can just explain this quickly. So we have our polydisk. We have the Fatu component U that contains our polydisk. If you iterate fn squared or fn plus 1 squared or fn plus 2 squared and so on, it converges to the fixed point 0 psi. So now you have somewhere f of u with the image of this polydisk. And if you consider the same sequence of iterate, fn squared, it goes somewhere, fn, well, this is f2n plus 1, to do fn plus 1 squared, and so on. Where does it converge? It converges to 0 f of psi. Just because capital F and essentially capital F and little f, capital F restricted to this is in fact given by little f. So if you start in the image and you use the same sequence of iterates, you will converge to 0 f of psi. If you start in fj of u and use the same sequence fn squared, it will converge to 0 fj of psi. Now, if two of those components were equal, then the sequence of iterate fn squared would converge to the same point. But because, maybe I should have said it earlier, because the map, the Lavorce map L sub f is defined on the basin of attraction, the attracting fixed point psi is contained in the basin of attraction, so it has an infinite forward orbit. So the fj of psi cannot be equal to psi, or fj of psi cannot be equal to fk of psi if j is not equal to psi. So we cannot have fj of u which is equal to fk of u if j is different from k. So it really gives you a wandering Fatu component. Okay? So now I have to, eventually I'm coming to the definition of this Lavorce map. So for the map F, as I said, we have a parabolic fixed point at the origin. And this parabolic fixed point has multiplier 1. And there is a theory of Fatu coordinates in this case, which tell you that within the basin of attraction of F, you can find a map, phi sub F, which conjugates the dynamics, semi-conjugates the dynamic of F to translation by 1. And it's called a Fatu coordinate. The Fatu coordinate phi sub F, going from the basin of attraction of F to C, which semi-conjugates F to translation by 1. And once you have a Fatu coordinate, you can always post-composite with the translation, and this gives you another Fatu coordinate. So you can normalize, you can choose a preferred Fatu coordinate by normalizing the behavior as real part of minus 1 over z goes to infinity. Which means as you go to 0 within the basin of attraction. And you can add plus a constant. Post-composing with the translation is adding a constant. So somehow we kill the constant to keep the beginning of the expansion, which is dictated by the first term in the expansion of the map, by this coefficient a. And then we add plus little o of 1 near infinity. Similarly, you have a repelling Fatou coordinate, which is in fact a Fatou coordinate for the inverse of the map, because near the fixed point at the origin, the map is invertible. So you can look at the repelling sides, and you have a repelling coordinate. Here we choose it to come to semi-conjugate translation by 1 to f. In other words, we somehow choose the inverse also of phi sub f. So this is why the normalization does not look like the same. It's because instead of looking the map from the plane of the polynomial into the plane of translation by 1, for psi sub f, we go from the plane of translation by 1 into the plane of polynomial. And we do the same thing. We choose the same normalization where we do not put the constant here at infinity. If you prefer, we choose a branch of logarithm. So it's the same thing. So the branch of logarithm here is the one that vanishes. It's defined on the right half plane, and it vanishes at 1. And the Lavors map is just the composition of those two maps. You first go from the basin to the plane of translation by 1 by phi sub f, and then you come back from the plane of translation by 1 to the plane of the polynomial by psi sub f, and this is your Lavors map. And so the rest of the proof that I do not have time to talk about is proving that if you choose f correctly, this Lavors map has an attracting fixed point. The only thing I can say is that given this expansion, there is something particular if you choose a is equal to 1. If you choose a is equal to 1, you get rid of this logarithmic term. And then essentially what it tells you is that the Lavors map wants to have a parabolic fixed point, a fixed point with multiplier 1, which is located at 0 on the boundary. And so if you move A in the correct direction, and the correct direction is you move A away from 1 by taking it slightly smaller, what happens if you have an infinite sequence of attracting fixed points for the Lavors map that appears, that splits from the origin. And if you move A in the other direction, you also have an infinite sequence of attracting fixed points, but those are repelling. So if you move in the correct direction, so the proof is really, if A is equal to 0, if A is equal to 1, we can prove in some sense, in correct sense, that there is the Lavors map has a parabolic point in the boundary. If you move it in the correct direction, and you can check in which direction, A is less than 1, then there is the appearance of an infinite collection of attracting fixed points. Okay, I don't have time to say more. And I don't have time to explain the pi squared over 4.
Explain pi squared over 4.
Okay, so the classical situation of studying Lavors maps appear when instead of iterating a composition of maps, f plus wn, f plus w, f sub wn plus 1, and so on, you just iterate a fixed map, f of z plus epsilon squared. And you fix the epsilon, and you'll just study the composition of those maps. And the theorem says that the theorem is the following. If you go to the theorem is that if epsilon is close to 1 over 2n, for example, you choose epsilon is equal to 1 over 2n. and then you iterate 2n times. So to explain the theorem, I should put the theorem in somehow full generality. So it won't be full generality, but it's not too bad. So you look at pi over epsilon, and you assume that pi over epsilon is equal to integer. Otherwise, it's difficult. You assume pi over epsilon is an integer, so it's equal to some integer, and you iterate f this number of times. So it's an integer and sub epsilon. Then this converges to the Lavors map f as epsilon. So if you just solve, epsilon is pi over n goes to 0. If you were to choose pi over epsilon is an integer plus 1/2 here, you would not converge to the Lavors map which is written, but instead you would converge to the Lavors map where you insert translation by 1/2 in between. Okay? So now, if you want pi over epsilon to be n, well, in our situation, remember we wanted to go from n squared to n plus 1 squared, so we had to iterate 2n plus 1 times. Okay, so I could tell you the exact same thing by writing a 2n here and saying that you will iterate 2n times, and it will converge to the Lavors map, which means that you have to choose epsilon is pi over 2n, and therefore epsilon squared is pi squared over 4n squared, and now you see the pi squared over 4, and this was the w sub n squared. Okay, so this is a classical situation, and now our situation is slightly different, which is that instead of iterating with a fixed epsilon, we iterate by taking wn squared plus 1, n squared plus 2, n squared plus 3, and so on, which means that now our pi over epsilon k is 2n plus k over n, where k varies, essentially it's close to, with k varying from 1 to 2n plus 1. And this is very sensitive because when you choose k is 2n plus 1, you have 2n plus 2 here, which means that in the classical situation, you would have to iterate 2n plus 2 to be close to the Lavors map. So at the beginning, when it's close to 2n, you know that you want to iterate 2n times, and it would be close to the Lavors map. At the end, it tells you, oh, if you iterate 2n plus 2 times, you will be close to the Lavors map. But now what we use is a composition where we shift slowly from the situation where you have to iterate 2n times to the situation where you have to iterate 2n plus 2 times. And the theorem says, okay, so the number of steps you have to iterate is just in between, exactly 2n plus 1 steps. It's not 2n, it's not 2n plus 2, it's exactly 2n that you have to iterate. And then you will be close to the Lavors map.
Is it important that you have a z-axis invariant?
Okay, so the situation here, by somehow by construction, because we play with an attracting fixed point of the Lavors map, it is stable. So we can expect that if we perturb slightly the situation where we have a fiber product to a nearby situation, then we keep this behavior. But for sure, I'm convinced that we'll have to keep some conditions, like the multiplier at the fixed point to have to remain 1, this condition over the pi squared over 4, which is very stable. So we can probably relax from having a fiber product situation, but we'll have to keep some conditions, and we don't know which conditions we have to keep. So it would be interesting to investigate whether we can produce a situation, an example, where we do not have a fiber product. But I would be tempted to think that we don't have to have necessarily the situation of a fiber product.
In the space of local maps defined in the neighborhood, fixed point, we have only finite codimension for this phenomenon. If you have a deep
this is my guess, but we have not proved such a thing. So my guess is from the conditions we have, you can compute the codimension, whether it's 3, 4, or something like that. But then you have to prove, and this has not been done. But I would not be surprised if somebody tells us we have a proof that it's a codimension 3 phenomenon, or 4. I have not computed the...
Okay, back to the speaker again.